Hey there, welcome back to Board 3D. I am Kurt and today we're making an insect screen. I started by measuring the dimensions needed for the insect screen. I made sure to measure the lip of the window to ensure that I had enough overlap between the frame and the window. Then I started measuring and marking the wood I was going to use and prepared to make the cuts needed. Using my Japanese razor saw, I made all the cuts I needed to start making the frame. I laid out the frame to make sure that all the cuts were square and as neat as can be. I used the frame that I had just laid down to mark and cut off 3 other pieces of wood. These would be used to sandwich the netting and to make the frame less flimsy. Sanding needs time and patience, and I lack both, but I still try to put in an effort to make the frame as smooth to the touch as possible. While I was doing that, I was considering the best way to attach the netting to the frame. At first I thought that taking a stack of staples, separating them and using them was a good idea, but this just ended up ruining most of the staples. Then I realized that I could just use the stapler itself, and it made my life a bit easier. I used a larger piece of netting so that I could cut it down to size later, and this worked out great. After putting wood glue, I clamped another piece of wood on the frame and sandwiched the netting. This made the frame sturdier. I made a test fit for the insect screen, but realized that I needed to trim it down a bit, so I got out my razor saw once more and shaved it down to size. Using Fusion 360, I modeled a simple handle and latch to hold the insect screen in place when in use. After I was satisfied with the design, I printed them using my Prusa i3 Mark II 3D printer. Now this is another very simple project which anyone can really attempt as long as you have a saw, just a bit of wood glue, a piece of netting, and that's it. The material used is a piece of wood which is 1 inch by 1 1/4 inch in thickness, and it is referred to locally as netting wood. Basically it is a very flexible piece of wood and is ideal for using it in these kinds of projects. The little bit of grief that I got from this project really came from my mistakes and from not realizing that there are other parts to a window rather than its aperture. There are obviously hinges, there are screws that go into the aluminium framing, and basically they all need to be taken into consideration when designing your insect screen. Once one side of the insect screen was trimmed, it fit into the window quite nicely and it held up on its own, and that is, you could call it the day after that, but I wanted to make it a bit more secure. So I hopped into Fusion 360, I modeled it, then printed it, and finally used some 1-inch wood screws to fasten it to the netting. I just had to do a couple of iterations on the lock to make sure that the height was correct, but other than that, it fit in just fine. I like making these kinds of projects because they are simple and they're practical and they have a real world application to make. It's not just like I'm making something that's just going to sit in my shop or on my shelf, just decorating through, which is fine, but in this instance, I wanted to make something which is a bit more practical. If you enjoyed this very simple build, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more of my videos, consider subscribing by clicking the button down below. Also, don't forget to visit boardcity.net to see write-ups on these projects, the ones that I upload on YouTube, as well as some other articles or blog posts which I write occasionally. Thank you very much for joining me for this project, and just as I have been inspired by other makers out there, I hope that you too can go to your shop and make something, because everyone is a maker. Bye!